You may have heard the news, and both the conservative news and the liberal news, you'd say, are both touting this in different ways. MSNBC is touting it as panic, as they believe President Trump had a big win. Fox News also saying this is a big win. But there are a lot of details that have come out when you really break it down, when you really look at their opinions, dissents, and all the things that came out, that it's not just a clear-cut President Trump victory.
That's right. So a per curiam order came out from the opinion from the United States Supreme Court last night, and this was on the application to vacate the orders issued by the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. This has been the judge that has been a thorn in the side of the administration when it comes to the deportation flights. This is the one that got in early and tried to get them to turn the plane around. And what has gone on here is that temporary restraining order that the judge put in place was now vacated by the Supreme Court. So that temporary restraining order was putting a hold on deportation flights and that entire deportation program under the Alien Enemies Act. That temporary restraining order has now been vacated, meaning that the Supreme Court is saying that the Trump administration can restart that program, but there's a lot of caveats that come with that. And their rationale wasn't necessarily that the judge erred in putting the TRO on place. They didn't rule on the constitutionality of how the Alien Enemies Act is being applied. What they found was that the plaintiffs that took this to the district court used the wrong venue. That what should have taken place was a habeas petition within the area of confinement for the migrants that were seeking to block deportation, not in Washington, D.C., as they chose to do.
And I have a list in front of me that says the wins in the cases and the less than wins for the administration. I'm going to read those to you real quick so you have a brief overview of what happened. Again, not saying I agree or disagree with any of these point of views. This is just what's happened. And then Harry and Will can break this down a little bit further. Wins in the cases. Here's what we got. The D.C. TRO, which stands for, Will?
Temporary restraining order.
There it is. That blocked deportations has been vacated. The Supreme Court said that bringing the case in D.C. was the wrong venue for this, which could limit forum shopping on this issue. They also reiterated that we will construct these TROs, which means
temporary restraining order,
as appealable injunctions, limiting the ability of lower court judges to put unappealable holds on administrative action. And it reestablishes the president's authority to enforce the Alien Enemies Act, at least for now. So those are you'd say, the wins for the Trump administration. Now let's go to the less than wins for the Trump administration. All 9 justices, said that this has limited judicial review, contrary to the administration's claim of zero judicial review, which could slow the process of these deportations. Each deportee must be afforded reasonable time, and in such manner as we will allow them to actually seek habeas relief in proper venues. So again, saying, hey, maybe they need some due process here. We need some time to actually know this is happening. It can't just be rounded up and put on a plate. They said the constitutionality of the law could be addressed, which could come down the way. They did not rule specifically on this. So this gives you a better understanding. I understand it more from just reading it out loud myself of what this case meant, but let's get a little bit more in depth. Harry Hutchinson's joining us. Will, why don't you?
That's right. And Professor Hutchison, as we were looking at this, obviously it's much easier for headlines to be written of big win or oh no, big win, depending on if you're on the left of the aisle or right of the aisle writing that headline. But in reality, this seems very much in line with the Roberts Court of addressing only the question at hand, which was on the specific temporary restraining order from the judge in D.C. And while all 9 justices agreed in the opinion that there is limited judicial review in this situation, it's much less than maybe any other type of law where a handful of different types of claims could be brought. They limited this to habeas relief here. But what we are looking at is pretty much a narrow ruling on just the question at hand, which was whether or not the temporary restraining order from the judge in D.C. could stand.
I think that's precisely correct. So I think if we break it down a little bit, the decision by the Supreme Court means that Trump's authority with respect to the execution and enforcement of alien enemies' actions against detainees is somewhat limited. In other words, these decisions are appealable. So that constrains the executive power of the administration. Importantly, as I think Logan points out, Judge Boasberg's authority has also been constrained. And he is a judge in Washington, D.C., who assumed jurisdiction of detainees who were held in Texas. So that was an extraordinary move by this particular judge, and one wonders, was he motivated by the law or by personal interests implicating members of his own family? That's a question which is yet to be decided. What's really important, I think, for the Trump administration, outside of the parameters of this particular case, is the United States Supreme Court is beginning to constrain the ability of the ACLU and other actors to simply forum shop, to look for a friendly judge in Washington, D.C.
Let's break down what foreign shopping is, because I think that that's not a phrase that normal people hear a lot. That's why I have to say, what's a TRO, Will?
Temporary restraining order.
Right, so we should know that. So forum shopping, give us a little brief understanding of that.
So with forum shopping, essentially the ACLU and other organizations, they compile a list of judges and jurisdictions that might be friendly to their particular perspective. And then they file in that jurisdiction, even though there may be an attenuated connection to that particular area. So in this particular case, we have detainees who are located in a prison in Texas. So the argument should be that the ACLU should go to Texas and bring its case, but instead they go to Washington, D.C., and Judge Boasberg has been identified, rightly or wrongly, as a person who might be friendly to the perspective of the ACLU. So foreign shopping means you're looking for a friend.
Good.
Another term that obviously is at the crux of this is habeas corpus. And when you look at this, the limiting factor on the types of claims that can be brought, I believe that they originally filed a habeas petition in Texas, the plaintiffs, and then removed that. They dismissed it so that they could go and try a route of the Administrative Procedures Act and things of that nature in D.C. instead because of that forum issue. But what the court rules here is that this is a core habeas issue, and that is seeking the court basically demanding rationale, like should I continue to be confined in this way or even deported in this way? And they're saying this is a core habeas issue and that they must be brought in habeas. Therefore, core habeas petitions, jurisdiction lies in only one district, the district of confinement. So that in and of itself limits this type of judicial review that can happen. But I think for people a little bit more context on this habeas corpus issue, which you may remember from civics class, government class, but don't hear used on the street every day and in your water cooler at work, what's kind of the ruling on this issue?
Well, essentially habeas corpus means to release the body. And the court has established that each detainee has the right to such a petition. And I would argue, consistent with my law school training, that is the correct answer, even if you disagree with this particular court's decision making. So I think that is the correct answer. but it is not necessarily the answer that the Trump administration was seeking.
I want to take this call real quick. Let's go to Linda, who's calling. There's been a lot of debate and conversation about this. Linda, we only got a couple minutes, but get your question in. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just interested in Justice Amy Barrett's dissent, her opinion on this, because she ruled with the other liberal justices, and I could see them, their ruling. I just don't understand Justice Amy.
We have an answer for you, Linda.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Will.
So I was actually very curious about that as well, Linda, when I read the opinion last night. But the dissent is from Justice Sotomayor, and Justice Kagan and Justice Jackson joined in full. Justice Barrett only joined as to parts 2 and 3B. So when you look at those parts, part 2 is pretty much just reiterating the fact that all 9 members of this court agree that under no uncertain terms that an individual subject to detention and removal under the Alien Enemies Act are entitled to judicial review as to questions of interpretation of the constitutionality of this act, as well as whether he or she is in fact an alien enemy 14 years of age or older. And then the other part, 3B, was about the fact that they didn't address the larger issue. So they kind of all agree that this does receive the habeas review. And where she specifically signed on to dissents, we're in almost making a highlight of that. We all agree that there is habeas review under this, and almost a little bit of frustration maybe with the Roberts Court for only sticking with the TRO issue and not going into some of the broader issues, just knowing that it will be coming back before the court.
That's right. And TRO stands for?
Temporary Restraining Order.
I'm going to do that so much. I love it. We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Seculo program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.